Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we are here to do Tao of the Day. I'm starting a couple minutes early today. Not sure if I'm going to have a hard stop or not, but I got a lot to do, so I may take a hard stop, but I know I can do all these things later in the day as well, so it's not a big deal. But I thought I'd start early just because I'm here. I'm just waiting to start, so I'm going to do it. Good morning. Hope you guys are having a good day. Maybe sitting down with your coffee, maybe just starting to move about. But it's Friday, and to me that doesn't mean anything because I don't work a regular job. I won't be doing Tao of the Day, or the plan is that I won't be doing Tao of the Day over the weekend. I might just stop in and do something. I love doing Tao of the Day. I love having a Tao for my day. And I want to just share that with so many people, if they're willing and wanting to engage in it. Tao, the Tao Te Ching is an ancient text, and as a kid, I was always, intrigued with riddles and intrigued with, like, the depth that things could get to, the different ways you can think about things, the different ways you can explore things. And as I've gotten older, as I've grown up, as I've done all of these sorts of experiences in my life, I found that thinking your way out of situations isn't really isn't always the best way to do things. It doesn't mean that we're going to feel our way through in this way of letting our emotions guide us, because our emotions are more erratic than our thinking. If we can get our thinking together and start thinking logically about things that we're experiencing in our lives, especially the erratic nature of our emotions, although emotions are very important into guiding us forward, then we're able to see ourselves more. We're able to see who we are and what's beneath the surface here. What is it that we're doing that's causing this emotion to get disrupted? I really like, there's a Bernie Sanders quote where he says, politics should be boring. It shouldn't be exciting. We're talking about finance. We're talking about, getting services. We're talking about, the moments in people's lives in which they need government, and that's going to be a difficult time for them. It's not going to be the best. You're not going to be doing your best if you need a hand from the government, right? And so we're going to be talking about boring things. We're going to be talking about things that are not exciting. And as our world turns to excitement, turns to emotion, we lose track of the boring things. And the boring things, the day-to-day things, for those of you who have been married, my guess is, the marriage is its best when it's boring, when it's like, yes, we do want excitement. Yes, we do want, but when I can appreciate my partner just for being, and like it can draw me to tears, that's when the relationship is at its best. It's not at its best when we're on vacation. It's not at its best when, I am swept up. It's at its best when I can appreciate this moment. And your life is going to be at its best when you can appreciate this moment. And this moment is not going to be exciting. I mean, odds are. If your life is more often exciting than it is boring, than it is, and I don't even want to say boring because I'm never bored, but my life isn't filled with stuff. It's not like I'm zip lining through a rainforest every day of my life, right? Like that would get boring. Like the people who do that for a living, it's gonna get monotonous at some point, and when you can receive that simple moment of being regular, that simple moment of being just average or day to day, like that's when life really shines. That's when life can really be received. And today I'm picking number 61, being great. And I'll let you know that I picked 61 before I came up, and I glanced at it, and I didn't read it all the way through yet. Although I know all of them, so I know what this is saying. And that's what sort of inspired this talk. I didn't know it was going to do that. I didn't know I was going to be talking about being okay with this moment. But really, that is what this is about to say. So this is entitled, again, Being Great. Being great requires the ability to be humble, so as to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. Attraction is the most primal of expressions. To receive that which is attracted is to know oneself. All great beings realize when they err. Having realized it, they admit it and correct it to the best of their ability. The greatest beings seek out those that can help identify their faults. They consider their enemy a part of themselves that requires attention. To be centered in Tao is to nourish all related things, not to interfere or meddle in the errors of others. What I was saying earlier, this idea of like being okay with the mundane, is at the core of this. I know we don't talk about mundane and don't talk about, but it's humility. It's like this gardening act, this pulling this one weed, walking to the mailbox, doing these things that we do every day, doing it from this humble place rather than, I wish my life was more exciting. This is it. This is like, be here, be present. There is joy in this moment. So now this verse makes a lot of assumptions in terms of, not assumptions. This verse takes a couple leaps that will happen when we start to unwrap what this verse is saying. The first line is, being great requires the ability to be humble so as to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. No matter what you attract, you can receive with tranquility. No matter how devastating, no matter how exciting, no matter how tumultuous, you can receive that which is attracted, because anything that you are receiving, you're attracting. Anything that's coming into your life, from the walk to the mailbox to walking across hot coals, this was attracted. You attracted this. And you can receive that with tranquility. Why can you receive it with tranquility? Because you're humble. You recognize that this is a part of you, right? This is something that you attracted. So this is something that you've put out in the world to get in one way or another. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're the victim of someone else's abuse, that you deserve, quote unquote, the abuse, right? That's not what we're saying. Okay. What's being said here is, when you can be humble, you're able to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. And when you're tranquil, when you're calm, you are going to make better choices. Spring Blossom is going to join me.
Hi, Martin John.
How are you?
Hey.
Are you listening?
I was listening to you, yeah.
Yes, here you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it just that just brought up some things that I thought I'll come on and share with you.
Please do.
So I had to go to the dental hospital, and when I got there, it was a different town, and I hadn't been in this town for a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years even. And I had to travel quite a long way to get there. Anyway, I'd stayed overnight at a friend's, and then I went to the hospital, the dental hospital, and I parked the car. And I went to where I thought the dental hospital was, and it wasn't there. And I had to walk a long way to get to the new place that they'd changed to the address to. And when I got there, I was really frustrated and triggered by having felt like I was going to be late, and I didn't want to be late and miss this appointment. I'd waited 6 years to get on the dental list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really bad in Victoria. Anyway, I got to the appointment and I knew I was triggered, and then this woman was talking to me with a mask on, and because I couldn't see her face properly, I couldn't understand what she was saying to me, and I got really disturbed by not understanding what she was saying and getting her to repeat it quite a few times and getting really angry myself inside, feeling really upset that I couldn't understand what she was saying, and she felt offended by me, and she was went off to get the top person to come in and talk to me. Anyway, I cooled myself down after a bit and apologized to the more superior person that came in to help organize it better. You know. Anyway, and when I was leaving, I said to her, I'm really, really sorry that I spoke to you the way I did. It wasn't fair on you. I was upset because I couldn't find which where the place was, and I had to walk a long way to get here, and I thought I was going to be late, and blah, blah. And then I had to go from that place to another place, which was in the main hospital, to get um, a, um, a X-ray done of my mouth. So I'm walking back to this other place. The woman was sort of, oh yeah, well you shouldn't talk to me like that, and you abused me. And I'm going, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that, and I hope you're okay. And I mean, everybody was smiling at me when I left anyway.
Okay.
And then, and then I get to this other place where there's a revolving door, a circular glass thing, and I have to go in it to get out of it and come into this place where the imaging place is. And as I walk through there, I look at this person sitting in a seat right in front of me, and I think to myself, oh, that's Peter, my old friend that I knew from way, way back. And it was. He looked at me, and I waited till he thought it was, and then he realized. He said, "Oh, it's you." And it was like I'd really like to see this person because I hadn't seen him for so long, and I'd known him quite well. Anyway, it was. I'm only in this town for a very short time, only to have the dental appointment and then go back to another town nearby, 30 k's away, and where my other friends were. And so I'm looking at, and we gave each other a big hug, and he was only there for about maybe 3 minutes waiting for his partner to come out from the imaging place, and I was going into the imaging place. The chances of that happening were like another 1,000,000 to 1 or even more.
Yeah.
And you know, this whole experience, it's like it kind of reminds me that there's something greater happening in this energetic world we're in, that he should be there, that we should give each other a hug and both be really happy to see one another, and then go on our way, you know.
Yeah.
So this sort of, I don't know how those two events were connected, but for me it felt like they were, you know. And I was really nice to the person that did the imaging with me, and I didn't say much, but it could have set me off doing the imaging thing, because they put this thing around you and they take an X-ray, and it's a big machine thing that you put your mouth on, and you have to put
Yeah.
your tongue around something. I don't know, something very uncomfortable. And for me, I'm not very good dealing with all of that. But it was the only way I could get my dental appointment transferred to another place, which is 3,000 k's away.
Oh.
So that I could get my teeth out and get some false teeth. And so, it was a big deal, really,
Yeah.
the whole event.
Well, like getting triggered, like recognizing that we're triggered. Like, so there's a number of things here, right? That I think like just kind of fall in your lap as, okay, well, these are one, I am so grateful that you got to run into Peter, and would that have happened had none of this happened? Who knows? Maybe, who knows? We can't, but we could allow it all to kind of be, right? Like it was in a different place and then you got triggered and all that. Maybe that's not going to affect your running into Peter, but it is going to affect you and who you are when you meet Peter.
Yeah.
And how open you are and how open you are to see, how open you are to notice those around you and notice where you are. And so, now the trigger for getting upset, like that, we're all going to get triggered. And just like it says here, like in this 61, not that we have to use this number for what you're going through, is like, the greatest beings seek out those who can help identify their faults. And what that means isn't people that tell you you're wrong. It's who can help identify your faults. How do you know you have a fault? You get triggered. You get triggered, right?
Yep.
You become embarrassed by who you are in one way or another, right? Like you treat someone poorly. You're like, I can't believe I treated that girl so poorly.
That's right. Yeah.
She helped you identify your faults because you made a whole bunch of assumptions. Those assumptions were wrong. Now you're frustrated. And whose fault is that? Not this girl's, right? And it can't even really be said it's yours. What it is it just like you weren't inspired to look it up. So this is all sort of what was going to happen anyway. And now there's something for you to look at.
And this is the thing about, I do have post-traumatic stress. And whenever I feel like I've done something wrong or, I judge myself, then it causes me to be emotionally unbalanced. And I'll attack someone that's trying to help me, and I do it all the time. I know I do.
I wonder, are you a Scorpio?
No, I'm Cancer.
No. You're I'm a Cancer. Oh, yay.
Yeah. And, and I feel too much. And
well, what's your rising sign? Do you know?
Yeah, Gemini.
Gemini. Okay. Well, that's close. That's close. That's the two, and that's the twins. So you got, you have two sides.
Yeah.
So, but it's the Scorpio. The Scorpio's interesting. I've always, I don't know. Scorpios, they'll harm people that they're trying that they love, just accidentally,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why I asked. But either way, in the 61, and this is what inspired, I think, what this incident did was bring up more of yourself.
Yeah.
That needs attention, that requires attention, as it says here, right? They consider their enemy. Now, this woman wasn't your enemy, but at that moment, you're frustrated. She's standing up for herself, which means she's keeping you at arm's length. and you're frustrated. And I mean, I don't know how it all went down, but when
Well,
you,
it was like that thing where I was saying, now I want you to listen to what I want. That's what I did
right.
when I first got there. I want
Yeah.
you to listen to what I want. I don't want you to go on expecting me to go with your agenda. I've got an agenda myself, and I want this.
Right.
So I was just telling her, I want my I want it to be transferred to this other place in New South Wales, so
Yeah.
that I can have attention up there. And I've come all this way to make sure that I can have this appointment because I've waited for 6 years for it.
Right. Yeah.
And then she had another agenda and she was trying to put that on me. And so I was interrupting her, and then she was saying things to me, and she was not, English wasn't her first language. So she was speaking to me in such a way I couldn't understand her because the mask was on. And the mask kind of upsets me too. I don't like people speaking with their mask on. And yeah, so I could.
So that's interesting. I want to just point out what you just said. You don't like people speaking with a mask on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want you to take that, remove the whole COVID-19 thing, and we look at masks as being, like you're not yourself. You're not like, you put on a mask when you talk to me. You put on a mask when you go out in public. You put on a mask in your relationship. You put on a mask. And I want, like from what I know about you, you want to be as authentic,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people being disingenuous are people wearing a mask, maybe. People that, right? And so it might not, like this is a physical, this is a physical aspect of, you don't like people wearing masks in front of you. However, they're doing it for their own personal reason. My guess is you wouldn't necessarily mind other people protecting themselves from getting hit by a bus, or
No.
you wouldn't mind people protecting themselves from the sun, and you wouldn't mind people protecting themselves from other things. Now, some people have, relationships with germs that are, extreme. And if we, and I'm sure if we were to break it down and say, okay, do you mind that people protect themselves because they are, they have a compromised immune system, like if they have cancer, if they are going through.
No, and I think there's a difference because this is imposed upon these workers in the health department. So it's actually not necessarily that she was wearing a mask because of her own choice, but actually from the institutional perspective that everybody has to wear a mask when they work in that institution.
Okay, and that's so you don't mind people wearing masks and talking to you when they're out in public?
Oh, I don't know. I just don't like people walking around with their, you can't see their faces. Yeah, it does disturb me when they're not able to communicate with me with a full face. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get.
and I think, and I do think this may, and this is just where it's like, in this number 61, what we're talking about is the greatest beings seek out those that can help identify their faults. Those that can help identify your faults are those that are going to cause you to be triggered. What you had just said was, I get triggered by people wearing masks. You didn't say I get triggered by people wearing medical masks in public or when they're communicating with me or whatever. But, and I know that we could break that down into understanding things. But it is so much in what we say or how we experience things. And I think that your relationship to authenticity, and you're wanting people to be authentic with you, and you just dropped off if you want to come back up, and I'd love to get a number from you and go go deeper if that's something that you'd like to do. I do think your relationship to your being authentic, and I would venture to say that the idea of wearing a mask and pretending to be something that you're not, or trying to do things of that nature, are just as triggering. When people around you are not being, when people around you are being disingenuous, when people around you are being false, when people around you are allowing themselves, even like the incident you had with a woman who you were living on that land with. It's like, I like to tell people, hey, look, don't let words get in the way of a good conversation. Because just because even yesterday I was talking to somebody on this program who, related like God and Tao together. And I think that that's beautiful. But if you allow all of the stuff, if you allow all of the dogma, all of the definition, all of the words to get in the way of our ability to communicate, then there's no way, like we're destined to fail.
Uh-huh.
And that's and that could be very much in this idea of identity, and this idea of wearing a mask, and this idea of being under the influence, right?
And ideology.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And here it is, like you see this person in the mask. One, she is being forced to wear the mask. That's upsetting to you because you don't like people telling you what to do. And these people are being forced to do this.
Yeah.
And then there is the wearing a mask where an individual is hiding who they are from you. And if you don't know what their motives are, you don't know what their inspiration is, you don't know what is driving them to do this communication, you don't know what's behind it, and so you don't want to fall into a trap or fall into a place where it's like someone lured me into this.
And also you can see people's intention. If you can see their face, you can actually read them better. And I guess as an empath, I can read people, and having a mask on and only seeing their eyes, you cannot actually have that closer connection with them.
Well, I would look at it. This is just because I care about you. I'm going to say this, and I want you to know it's coming from a place of love. I would look at how you're positioning yourself as a victim, because you are an empath and you can be in touch with them subtly without even seeing them. If you were blind, you'd still have to communicate, and you would have to do that more from your heart than your eyes.
Oh.
And so if you weren't so triggered by the wearing of the mask, you'd be able to be more open to what it is you're feeling and what it is you're feeling in this communication.
And what I was feeling was that I couldn't walk from my car to the place where I thought it was, and I had to go a long way around to get to there, and that's what triggered me.
That's right.
So I was already triggered, and then
then it just kept piling on one another.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, yes, we could lean into all of the reasons why. However, the real reason why is that, I was triggered. This thing that probably wouldn't have been a problem if I wasn't already triggered became a problem.
Yeah.
Now we have more information about ourselves, not about masks. We don't have any more information about masks than we already went in with. We have more information about ourselves. And that's what's beautiful about this. That's how we grow. That's how we become that's how we just allow our light to, just continue to grow.
Inform us. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right.
It's not that we were victims. It's that we were triggered. Oh, okay, great. Now let me look at this. Let me take an opportunity to not while I'm triggered, being a victim is going to be the default. But now that I'm out of it, can I take a breath and not be a victim to the mask, and not be a victim to the walk, and not be a victim to the heat, and not be a victim to all of the things that caused us to be triggered, because we're no longer there. Just like at the end, everyone was smiling at you, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
and that's what's beautiful. Like we get to, and as it says in this one, all great beings realize when they err. Having
And
realized it, they admit it and correct
yeah,
it to the best of
yeah,
their ability.
yeah, and that's what I did, and
That's right.
that's why they were smiling at me, and
Yeah,
I was getting really good vibes from everybody. The woman was upset that I'd spoken to her that way.
of
She was
course.
reactive to me, and I continued to feel humble in relation to that. I didn't respond in a negative manner because I knew that I had done a wrong
Right.
thing to her, and
That's right.
I was truly sorry that I'd spoken to her the way I had.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, yeah.
And then, now that you're beyond it, here, this is what the next line says in the 61. The greatest beings seek out those who can help identify their faults. Now, that doesn't mean, like, you just do that naturally. You're always going to seek out people that are going to trigger you. You're not going to know that you're seeking them out. They're just going to be attracted to you. And and then they help you identify your faults. They consider their enemy, anybody that triggers them, a part of themselves that requires attention. And then
Oh,
you get to give attention to that part of you that is them.
yeah. It's beautiful.
It is. And then, this
Yeah.
wraps up: to be centered in Tao, to allow yourself not to be that victim, to allow yourself to receive what is attracted, because you attracted it.
Yep.
To be centered in Tao is to nourish all related things. So by giving yourself the love that you require, without being a victim of all of that stuff, that woman that you may never interact with again
Yeah.
is going to receive that love.
Yeah. Yes. That's
And then the
great.
last line is really sort of pivotal: to not interfere or meddle in the errors of others. She got triggered just like you. Don't interfere. Don't tell her she's wrong, just like you did at the end, where it's like she's still poking and prodding, but you're not going to interfere or meddle with that. You're not going to try and make her happy. You're not going to try and make her forgive you. You're going to allow her error. And her error is that she is a victim to you. Just like your error was that you were a victim to her in the heat and the walk and the stuff, whatever. That's your error that you will take home and offer love.
Yeah.
She has the opportunity to see her error and offer that love as well. Whether she does it or not is not your responsibility.
That's true. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And the reward is the day with running into Peter and
that's right.
you know just having that friendship with him that went way back, maybe 15 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And running into him and only having that few moments when we could give each other a hug and catch up a little bit on each other's lives, and then off he went with his wife and I went off to the imaging, and it was just like an affirmation from the cosmos. It was the universe or Tao, if whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
it was like, the possibility of me running into Pete was just so slim. There was such a tiny window that occurred in. It was a miracle.
Yeah. And that's like all of this is interesting. Like I like piecing things together, as you may know.
Yeah.
So Peter's 15 years ago. You're like, I want you to recognize that like 6 years ago when you got on this list, that was that was the beginning of you reconnecting with Peter.
Yeah. He actually moved out of the town 5 years ago, from the town that I knew him in, which we both lived there. Yeah.
So that's it, like that's all so like impossible,
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like all of this, and let's look at imaging of your mouth. That is an X-ray of that which is covered by the person that you interacted with. Right? So like we're seeing both sides. We're seeing it covered and we're seeing it like penetrated.
Yeah.
And looked at, right? Like all of this stuff and all of this, and the mouth is about communication. That's the throat chakra. And so we can start looking at communicating. We start looking at how did we communicate with Peter? We communicated with a hug. We did all of these things. What is it that I'm communicating? I'm trying to communicate that I want to do this 3,000 kilometers away. I want to do, like, there's all of these things that we can piece together, and actually they connect in one way or another.
Yeah.
And it's like, how interesting. And this is when we throw the word far out in there. Like, oh, far out. Look at this. Look at what just happened. Like, how amazing. And how great for me to be able to mature through this, to be able to grow through this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Martin John.
Absolutely.
It's so sweet interacting with you, hearing you respond. It's just beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Life is easy, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you're getting taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's beautiful.
It is.
I've run into all of these people that I needed to see, and it's been an amazing week.
Yeah. Life just keeps getting better the more we just sort of like surrender into it and do our work and just receive what needs to be received. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, this thing happened. I'm not receiving what I want. And then you got to remember, wait a minute. I never don't receive what I want. So how is this going to unfold into what I want? Or what I am? Or like, it's just so beautiful to be able to just kind of look at it all and say, far out. How is this going to work out? Beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Did you want to pick a number, or do we want to just use 61 and move on?
Yeah, 61 was great. I really enjoyed it.
That's good. Yeah, I think it, there's always ways that we can kind of make it work, but I don't force it. And it just seems really fitting.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Absolutely.
All right.
We'll be in touch.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye. Oh, I'm going to read this again because I want to kind of go back through it a little bit. Being great requires the ability to be humble so as to receive that which is attracted with tranquility. Humility to receive that which is attracted. What are you attracting in your life? And can you receive it? There's a big difference, right? We need to be able to look at like receiving. I know for me, I went to a dark retreat in order to learn how to receive. Now, anything you receive is what you're attracting. So just like Blossom had this experience where she received, she went in and she had all of these expectations about communicating things, and someone else had expectations about communicating things, and ... And there was, if she didn't have to walk, if she wasn't already triggered, that interaction would have been so different. Right? So obviously, this is being received. I like to think about the world outside of our immediate surroundings as being a world that like it only gets created when we arrive there. It's not something that actually exists before we need it. It does for other people, but it doesn't for us. And so it gets created when we arrive there. And I also think about the idea that, like, what if time doesn't exist? What if just at this moment I am created and I have a memory preloaded in my head of what history was? And so even though I'm sure that I had a 5 years old, maybe I didn't. Maybe this is the only moment that I have. This is some of the big sort of questions that we can ask when we start talking about existence, when we start talking about, like, experience, we start talking about consciousness. What is consciousness? How do we know it's there? How do we know all of these things? Our brains, like, fill in gaps so much that we think things are real when they're not. Being great requires the ability to be humble. Humble in your thoughts, humble in what you think is right, humble in what you think is wrong, humble in your approach to everything that's going on around you. You gotta be humble. And even when you're triggered and you're playing the victim and you're doing all of that, remember humility. Remember that humility exists and you can achieve it. And when you're humble, you can receive that which is attracted with tranquility. You can calmly receive that which is attracted, no matter what it is. I think I told you guys the other day, the ceiling in one of the rooms in my back house fell in. Like it was first, like, brr, that's overwhelming. But really, after a few minutes, it's like, all right, well, the next thing I got to do, right? What's the next most obvious thing? Clean it. And then it's like, oh, the tub is leaking. Okay, well, next most obvious thing is shut off the water and replace the faucet. Okay, no problem. It's all right. Attraction is the most primal of expressions. That which you're attracting. I attracted the ceiling falling in, and I started thinking about that. It's like, the ceiling fell in. That's interesting. Like, where in my life is the ceiling falling in, or whatever? I was just like, well, I wasn't really triggered by it, so maybe I don't have to look at it too much because I don't think there's anything here. Where in my life does that happen? Where in my life? I was just like, oh, no. Actually, I look at it and I'm like, everything looks good. I should fix this one thing. I'm going to fix that before I seal it all up. And then we seal it up and it's all good. Maybe it's just getting me to do some things that I probably would have put off. That's okay. Do the next most obvious thing. Receive that which you are attracting with calmness. To receive that which is attracted is to know oneself. Right? Attraction is the most primal of expressions. To receive that which is attracted is to know oneself. And that's what we were talking to Blossom about. Can you receive this without being a victim, without telling the story? You just receive that which you attracted and know yourself because of it. Know what you're putting out in the world, because this is what you're attracting. If this is what you're attracting, what is it you're putting out in the world? Now you know yourself more. Now you know yourself better. Whether or not the woman that was triggered by Blossom does her work isn't her concern. She doesn't have to worry about that. All she has to do is be triggered. And that's okay. She can go ahead and be triggered. That's not Blossom's responsibility. It's not our responsibility to show her that she's triggered. It's not our responsibility to show her where she's playing the victim. It's not our responsibility to do any of that. She just has to live her life. And that's okay. Now, if she can be humble and realize that this is what she's attracting, she's going to learn more about herself. But she's perfectly fine not doing that. Auntie Sparkly are going to come up, and then I might sign off after that. Auntie Sparkly, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I love my life.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm doing wonderfully.
My number for today is gotta be 79.
79. 79 is conflict resolution. You have any conflicts in your life right now?
Yes, but I'm not gonna go into details. I'm a private person.
No, that's quite all right. I just want to, because this one's entitled conflict resolution.
So, yes, I have conflicts and
okay,
that need to be resolved.
Okay, so we're gonna take a little, we're gonna stretch out a little bit, and we're gonna go into this, and we don't have to go into details, but we're gonna talk a little bit about this, and as we do, I want you to be able to relate those to your life as you need to. Okay, so this reads: every conflict creates an other. Even after resolution, animosity remains. Is that good enough for you?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the master always does her part, keeping the peace, not placing blame, correcting her own actions without requiring the same from others. Tao doesn't care who's right. If you do, you will find it difficult. What do you think?
I love it.
Yeah. You know, this is one that stands out to me. I really love the idea of conflict resolution in this way, right? The idea that when you can't, well, it starts by every conflict creates an other. So when there's a conflict, when we are involved in conflict, we inadvertently, and I think it's almost part of the design, look down on our opponent. And we say, what you want is less important. What you want isn't right. What you want is wrong. What you want is whatever. And so you're creating an other. Now that because if they were an equal, we wouldn't be in conflict. We would be in a space of trying to compromise or trying to yield. But because we want to overpower this person with what we want, as a result of the conflict, we create an other. This is the same thing, like creating an other is like just putting someone down, right? And so racism in the United States creates an other because there are white folk and then there's everybody else, right? Those are others, like whether you're an immigrant or whether you're Mexican or whether you're black or whether you're, mixed race or whatever, that creates an other. And many people kind of do that just inadvertently. Like they just do that without even recognizing they're doing it. And when we have conflict, we create an other. Even after resolution, animosity remains. Because once we find a resolution, once we find a way to solve it, someone's had to give up more. Someone feels like they had to give up more. And that it's the conflict before the resolution that causes the animosity after the resolution. And the question here is that good enough for you? Is that good enough for you that this person that maybe you care about, this person that is a human being, not an animal, not an other at all, someone that, we should be able to give love to. Now, companies and other things like that, that's different. Because those are entities. Those are entities that are trying to get the most out of us without giving us any sense of dignity, without giving us any resolution. So the question, is that good enough for you? Is it good enough for you? Is it good enough for me? Is it good enough to allow animosity to remain? And we know that animosity is going to remain after conflict, so why engage conflict in the first place? And that's sort of how this starts. It's like every conflict creates an other. Even after resolution, animosity remains. Is that good enough for you? The question is, do you want to continue with this conflict if you know that you're creating an other and animosity is going to remain on the other side of it? And because
I don't want to say that it's okay. It's not okay to have animosity in your heart, because what I believe in the Bible is that you cannot forgive others as Christ forgive you. So that's what I believe. It's not okay to have animosity.
And conflict, and if we look back at different conflicts that we've had, maybe we've been able to get rid of all animosity, but maybe the other person hasn't. And so animosity can remain. I know there have been times where I have gotten in like physical fights with people, and afterwards we were great friends, and the animosity didn't exist. So this is the question, right? Like, if you're going to forgive, you forgive completely. But if you've already created an other and you've looked down on somebody, that's hard to get over, especially as the other person who was being looked down upon. And what it says here, therefore, the master always does her part, keeping the peace, not placing blame, correcting her own actions without requiring the same of others. And I think that's a big aspect of this, where it's just like, you know what? This is the right thing for me to do in this situation. And I'm going to do the right thing. And that doesn't mean I'm going to let someone walk all over me. It does not mean I'm going to just let someone else be quote unquote right. Just means I'm going to correct my own actions. Just like when I was talking with Blossom, she had to correct her own actions by going back and talking to the receptionist and saying she was sorry and she didn't mean it. And the receptionist was angry still. But Blossom did not have to convince the receptionist to forgive her without requiring the same of the receptionist. She didn't require the receptionist to be humble. She just allowed herself to be humble in that conflict. Blossom started the conflict, possibly, because who knows, maybe this other woman was triggered as well before Blossom came in. And so it might not have only been Blossom's responsibility. However, Blossom corrected her own actions without requiring the same of others. Now, that conflict created an other, and animosity remained. Animosity didn't remain in the heart of Blossom, and yet the receptionist had animosity toward Blossom still when she left. And that's how this is sort of playing out. Now, what it says at the end is Tao doesn't care who's right. If you do, you will find it difficult. If Blossom went in to the receptionist and apologized, and the woman didn't accept the apology, Blossom could have gotten triggered even further and got even more upset. And says, well, if you don't accept my apology, I'm going to recant mine and I'm going to take it back. And now, like, if you care who's right, and it's like, you have to do your part, regardless of what other people do. I remember my sister and my brother were at odds for a number of years. And I told both of them, look, yes, you have to turn the other cheek, but you have to do it at least, 6 times. Because what's going to happen is you're going to turn the other cheek. They're going to slap you, and then you're not going to trust them, and they're going to put out an olive branch. And when they do that, you're going to slap them. And then you're going to feel bad, and they're going to feel bad, and it's going to go back and forth because you guys aren't just correcting your own actions. You correct your own actions for one moment, and you think that's enough. It's not. You have to give people the opportunity to trust you again, because animosity remains after the conflict.
Yes, and you got to, do your own healing.
That's right.
And get to the root of the problem and find the resolution that the problem that you need to solve. Like ask them, what did you do to make me upset? Or, tell them, like, what did I do to make you upset? Well, you said this, and this is how I feel. Talk about your feeling. Tell them how you feel.
Yeah, there's value in that. I look at it a little differently, but I do see where you're coming from, and I do agree with that. Mm-hmm. I think I really love exploring all of these things, and I'm so glad that you came up and picked this. It's interesting. I wrote conflicts, but I wanted to write sparkly down. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming up and reading with this. And I hope that that's helpful. I'm going to send that to you in the text here on Noom Vibe so that you can look at it and apply it to the conflicts that are going on in your life.
Oh, okay, I will. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. I love you, dear, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
I love you too, my brother. Take care.
Bye-bye. Okay, I'm going to call it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to call it because I'm going to run out and do some things. I started 5 minutes early today, so I'm going to end a little early. Love you guys. Hope you have a wonderful day. Have a great weekend. I'm going to be doing random Dows of the day at different times. I might come on over the weekend and do one. So keep an eye out on Noom Vibe, because it's not going to be at 6 a.m. I like to try and get new people. I like to try and do it at different times later in the day, maybe, so people on the West Coast might be able to join me and things like that. So if you appreciate what I'm doing and you want to check out other work that I do, you can check out my website through my profile. You can pick up my copy of the Tao Te Ching through my website. And I'm always open to talk Tao offline. If that's something that you're interested in, you can go to my website and set up a free 30-minute call so that we can chat a little bit about the Tao, and we can chat a little bit about what's going on with you and if I might be someone that you can work with. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.